Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it. All right, welcome back to The Shift Show. This is our second episode of the day because I just, felt like each question deserves its own episode. And I know the last episode from today was very short, but it just didn't make sense to combine the answers because it's completely different topics. And the second one is quite a bit longer. So let's get started. So our next Dear Adriana column question comes from Michelle. And Michelle says, Dear Adriana, both my mom and sister are narcs. I've recently began a cordial relationship with my mom, realizing I cannot have any emotional attachments and boundaries can be crossed at any moment. I am still no contact with my sister, but her hoovering and guilting has been ongoing. I will every so often get texts such as, there are some days I just wish I could talk to my sister. Today is one of those days. I'm still really struggling with dealing with the fact that you want no part of my life. May take a lifetime of therapy to accept this. Please let me know if you ever have a change of heart. She will also guilt me about not allowing my daughter to have a relationship with her or her baby cousin. I have never met my nephew because I realized she was a narc right around when she gave birth, and so I started distancing myself. I know she will continue sending gifts and cards to my daughter as she grows older. I'm worried about social media and when my daughter gets old enough for this and cell phones that my sister will start talking to her and turning her against me. Do I allow my daughter to have a relationship with her now so she doesn't hate me later? How do I deal with the hoovering and guilting of not having a relationship with my only sister or only nephew? How can I possibly keep a cordial relationship with my mom when I know triangulation will be happening, even if behind my back? The guilt is so real because you want to defend yourself and explain why you can't mentally engage in their antics anymore. Thanks. So yeah, this is a very classic narcissistic family shit show here. And so number one, it is so great that you realize that both your mom and sister are narcissists, and you absolutely cannot have any emotional attachments with your mother if you choose to have a cordial relationship with her. And yes, boundaries can and will be crossed at any moment. Narcissists do not do boundaries. They hate boundaries. They will trample all over your boundaries. If you try to set boundaries with them in a very specific way, like, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like that, so can you please stop doing it because it's ruining my life? You've given them the war plan. You've given them ammunition. You've given them exactly the steps of what to continue doing so that they can continue getting supply from you. So you have to understand, first of all, that this is a narcissist's goal, getting supply from their targets. This is your emotional reaction, your time, your energy, you having anxiety over everything that they're doing, having, being in a state of fear, being in a state of guilt, shame, general bamboozlement. That is what narcissists get off of. It makes no sense. When you're a normal person with empathy who could never imagine doing this type of shit to other people, it can be really, really hard to wrap your head around the concept of supply. And so kind of like the sooner you accept that supply is all it's about and all it ever will be about, the better. And your sister is really working the guilt trips on you, right? So hoovering is very common, especially if you've gone no contact. And I'm not surprised that she's guilting you. And, you can really hear the tiny violin playing with her message that you put in quotation marks here. Like, I'll read it out again. There are some days that I just wish I could talk to my sister. Today is one of those days. I'm still really struggling with dealing with the fact you want no part of my life. May take a lifetime of therapy to accept this. Please let me know if you ever have a change of heart. Like, you can literally hear the tiny violins playing in the background. I wonder if I can figure out how to add tiny violins in this. I don't know. I'm not good with technology. But anyways, she's really trying to, just even the first sentence, there are some days that I just wish I could talk to my sister. Well, you had that opportunity. You had the opportunity. You chose to abuse your sister. And What she's really saying is, I just wish I can get supply from you again. You know, like it's just like a how dare you cut off supply because I feel entitled to getting supply from you. And today is one of those days. No, today is just the day that I feel like seeing if I can still get my claws back in so that I can rope you back in and put you through another cycle of abuse. She's struggling with dealing with the fact that you want no part of her life. She's struggling with the fact that she cannot get supply from you, and she can't get supply from your daughter either, right? Because they love to manipulate children because children are very easy to manipulate. Like, they are new humans. They don't know. And let's see. May take a lifetime of therapy to accept this, right? So, I mean, if you're working with a good therapist, it shouldn't have to take a lifetime, but what do I know? Please let me know if you ever have a change of heart. So this is like a slight dig where it's like, you're just being so mean and so unreasonable. And she's trying to make you feel like shit about yourself for putting this distance between you and her, because you're literally protecting yourself and your child from her abuse, right? And she is making it seem like you're just for no reason at all that you stop talking to her. There is a damn good reason. She knows exactly what the reason is, but she will never, ever take accountability. And now, in terms of her guilting you about not allowing your daughter to have a relationship with her or her baby cousin, so she is not entitled to a relationship with her niece, first of all. So just something to really keep in mind. You've never met your nephew because you realized she was a narc right around when she gave birth. So that's when you started distancing yourself. So good for you. I am really proud of you for doing that. And, you know, a lot of people would, because they use their babies as supply too, right? So she could have very well used her child as a source of supply to manipulate you and get you to not distance yourself. So it's amazing that you did distance yourself regardless of whatever tactics she was throwing at your way. And yeah, her sending gifts and cards to your daughter is really just a form of love bombing. So she's basically trying to manipulate your daughter. She's trying to gain her trust. And so I don't know how old your daughter is, but I'm assuming she's young because you said you're worried about social media and when my daughter gets old enough for this and cell phones. So I'm assuming she's still very, very young. And there is a chance that your sister will find her on social media way down the line in the future and try to turn you against her. But the thing is, she will have been in the presence of a stable adult that entire time. So it wouldn't really work for her to turn her against you, right? Like, your daughter might probably have some questions about, like, why is Aunt so-and-so saying this weird stuff about you if it ever gets to that point. But, you know, she's going to have spent enough time with a positive influence in her life, which is you, that it's not going to be so easy for your sister to manipulate her. Now, you ask, do I allow my daughter to have a relationship with her now so she doesn't hate me later? That is exactly what your sister wants, right? She wants you to be so afraid that, you know, your daughter is going to hate you, and what if she manipulates her and you have to play nice and all that kind of stuff, so that you cave and you have the relationship with her and it prevents the consequences in the future. But the thing is, if you do that, you are literally throwing your daughter to a wolf and throwing her into an abusive situation. So your daughter's not going to hate you for preventing that. I promise you. All right? Like, when your daughter becomes an appropriate age to, like, explain it to her in, like, a kid-friendly way, you can just say, like, you know, Aunt so-and-so is, you know, she's just, it's like, just tell her, like, it's like a lesson that when someone is mean to you and abusive towards you, you don't continue a relationship with them, right? Because that's a really great way to teach your daughter to get away if she ever ends up in, like, an abusive relationship when she's older, right? So it would be, like, the worst thing to have her have that relationship with your sister now, because that gives your sister a really great opportunity to start manipulating her from such a young, impressionable age. All right. Now, so I hope that helps. And I hope that you're able to see it, that, it's just not going to be a great idea. And you're absolutely doing the right thing not having that relationship with her, because you're protecting your daughter from being manipulated, you're protecting her from being abused, and you're also protecting her from normalizing narcissistic behavior. So you are doing everything right. So look at it like you are protecting your daughter, you are not being mean, you are not doing a horrible thing to your sister or to your daughter, you're doing something wonderful for your daughter, quite frankly. And now in terms of how to deal with the hoovering and the guilting of not having a relationship with my only sister or only nephew. So this is where doing the inner work really, I can't stress it enough, right? Because it's repressed emotions that keep us in that bamboozled state where we are, worried about everything. We're easier to control because that's what narcissists do. They put you in those states of guilt and fear and shame and sense of obligation and, confusion and all that, because anybody in those emotional states is easier to control. So if you're not doing the inner work, I would definitely recommend you start doing the inner work. If you are interested, I am offering a brand new course in the very near future that you can still pre-order and save $250 on it. The link is going to be in the description, and it will really kind of walk you through how to heal from narcissistic abuse. So it's a great, that is one option. Another option is to start journaling, right? So pen, paper, 20-minute timer, vomit all of your thoughts onto the paper, and start noticing what's happening in your body, because whatever's happening in your body is the physical sensation of the emotion, and that's what you want to start processing. Because emotions are not a mental process. They are a physical process. They have to be felt in the body so that they can be released. And once you release that guilt, you're not going to care about her hoovering. You're not going to care about her guilt trips. You're going to be like, oh yeah, there's my sister trying her bullshit again. I'm going to move on with my day. Right? I know that can sound impossible right now, but the inner work is totally going to help. And so, this whole, because she's your sister, right? Like there's this whole thing about like the family, and family is everything. This is your only sister. This is your only nephew. Maybe way down the line, like you'll be able to have a relationship with your nephew. If he figures out he has a narcissistic mother, he might reach out to you. You never know. But right now, like you don't want to get involved in this, because you have to protect yourself and your daughter, okay? And thank God she's your only sister. Imagine if like there were multiple of her, right? That would be like quadruple the abuse, and that would be a bigger shit show. So try to look at it that way. It's the same thing with people with narcissistic mothers, like, oh, that's your only mother, like da-da-da-da-da. That's just really like societal stuff, and just because you are blood related to somebody, it does not mean that you are obligated to have a relationship with them, especially when they're abusive. There are siblings out there that don't even have bad relationships. They just go their separate paths in life, and they go really long periods of time without talking, and it's not like this whole dramatic thing. You know what I mean? So try to look at it that way, that like she just feels very entitled to getting supply from you. And just because she's your sister, and just because now you have a nephew, it does not mean you're obligated to be in touch with these people, because you know that it's just going to be an absolute shit show and filled with abuse. And so in terms of how to keep a cordial relationship with your mom when you know that triangulation is going to be happening, even if it's behind your back, like that's the tricky part, right? So you have to really, I would encourage you to really reflect on, if it's worth having this relationship with your mom. And if you determine that, yes, you want to still have this relationship with her, even though she's a narcissist, you have to not give her information. You have to be a gray rock. So the gray rock method is just, it's a boundary in itself. It's a boundary that does not need to be communicated. And it's a boundary that you show by your actions and not your words. So this is where you just become a gray rock, be extremely boring, one-word answers, no emotion. The goal is really not to give the narcissist supply, right? Because that is what they're after. And the triangulation is inevitable, right? Especially with your sister involved. It's absolutely going to be happening behind your back. So I do have a smear campaign masterclass as well, if that is of interest. That can be really helpful for this kind of situation on how to deal with a smear campaign and narcissists talking behind your back. And that will be included in the link in the description as well. But really, it's all about processing your emotions under it so that you can kind of be indifferent towards it. And easier said than done. It is a journey. It's going to take a lot of inner work to get there. And the guilt is definitely very real, right? Because you want to defend yourself and explain why you can't mentally engage in their antics, and that's supply. You defending yourself, you engaging, you explaining, that is supply. Your emotional energy, your time, your words, your resources, your engagement in these conversations. And you're going to only be exhausted engaging and having these types of conversations that are going to go absolutely nowhere, because then they're just going to blame you, tell you how terrible you are, blah, blah, blah. And it's completely pointless. So just something to really kind of keep in mind, because they want you to feel guilty. They want you to feel like crap about yourself, like you've committed this terrible crime, not being in touch with certain family members, and that makes you a terrible person. Well, guess what? You have not broken any laws. You are not going to jail for this. They just want to make you feel so obligated that they force themselves back into your life so that they can keep abusing you. And that's not fair to you. That's not fair to your daughter. And it's just, they're not entitled to access to you. So just something to very much keep in mind. I hope this was helpful. That's pretty much my thoughts on that. It's not going to be an overnight process to reach that level of indifference that you want to get to, but you will get there. Just start journaling like what I described a bit earlier, and just take things one day at a time, and just notice how you're feeling in any given moment. So when you get a hoover from your sister, how are you feeling in that moment? Are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling shame, fear, sense of obligation, confusion? That is a red flag that you're being manipulated, right? So you want to really get in touch with those emotions, because the more that you master your own emotional world, the more difficult it's going to be for a narcissist or a manipulator to mess with you. So that is really why I cannot stress enough how important it is to really get started on doing that inner work, which again, journaling is a great start, and my resources will also be posted under the description as well for anyone who is interested in taking things further and getting guidance and all that kind of stuff. There are options, but really starting with journaling is a great step, right? 20 minutes, pen, paper, vomit out your thoughts, destroy the paper. That's the most important part, because it's telling your subconscious that this no longer serves. And that's going to really kind of help you to start getting in touch with those emotions, because you've now, by the journaling, you've released the mental noise that's going on, and you're less in your thinking brain and more in like your feeling brain. And you might not notice like if it's doing anything right away, but over time, if you stick to this and do it regularly, it will start to make more sense. It's really one of those things where, I hate to say this, but you sort of have to trust the process and just do it. And then it's going to start making sense as you go. And the real goal for journaling is to just be honest with yourself. The more honest you are with yourself, the easier it's going to be to really figure out how you're feeling and start processing how you're feeling. So yeah, I think that is it for this episode. I hope that this was helpful for you, Michelle. And if you have your own question that you would like to submit on this podcast, the link is in the description to submit your own question. And all you have to do is stay tuned for a future episode for the answer to that question. So stay tuned here in the podcast. Keep listening every week. I'm going to try to do at least one episode a week, which I've been very consistent with. So that's great. But I'm going to try to do 2 a week, because I have so many responses. And I really want to kind of get through them and get even more responses from people. So feel free to submit whatever you'd like to submit. And I look forward to answering your questions on my podcast. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed having 2 episodes today. I was not planning on that, but here we are. And I will see you probably later this week, or you'll hear me later this week in the podcast. for our next submission. And I've been getting a lot of great feedback on this column on Instagram as I've been sharing the episodes as they've been coming up. If you're not following me, why aren't you? Find me on Instagram at Let's Get Your Shift Together, all one word, that is shift with an F. And feel free to join the party there. We've got a lot of people, a little overwhelming, but it's great. And I've been getting a lot of great feedback from my followers on these episodes, how helpful they've been. And there's so many people going through very similar situations as, you know, the ones I've already answered so far. So, you know, even if you think your question is not like, I don't know, if your inner critic is telling you like, oh, don't even bother because it's like a stupid question, there's no such thing as that. And there's probably somebody else or several other people who are also struggling with the same thing that maybe didn't have the courage to submit the form. And you never know who you might be helping just by asking your question. So feel free to make a submission. I will stop rambling now. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.